All worlds begin with Demon Slayer. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 226. You are the one who is wrong. Get out of here. My team was almost wiped out. If I can't kill the ghost again in this mission, my A-class status will be downgraded, and I won't get the generous monthly salary of the A-class team member. So, I'll take the heads of these two little ghosts for you. The A-class team member thought Tanjiro wanted to snatch the heads from him, so he said to Tanjiro with disdain. After saying that, the A-class team member rushed towards the lower five, and Tanjiro immediately stopped him and said, "It's dangerous, stop it." However, Tanjiro's words did not work at all. The next second, the lower five leaned back with one hand and shot a spider web towards the A-class team member. The spider web went straight through the A-class team member's body and cut the upper body of the A-class team member into pieces. The scene was extremely horrifying, and Tanjiro was stunned, with a look of horror on his face. Is this the true strength of the 12 Kizuki? Cutting people into pieces in an instant. Tanjiro couldn't help but think of Hibikike that he had met before. With this comparison, Tanjiro could understand why Hibikike was deprived of his status as one of the 12 Kizuki. After the lower five dealt with the clown-like A-class member, he asked Tanjiro coldly, "What did you say just now? Answer me." Tanjiro could already feel the pressure from the lower five becoming stronger and stronger. At this time, Tanjiro couldn't help but doubt himself. With the real 12 Kizuki, could he still win, like he did against Hibikike? Inosuke, please don't be in trouble. Tanjiro began to worry about Inosuke. Now faced with such a situation, Tanjiro knew that it was impossible for him to rush back immediately. "Didn't you hear? Answer me. I'll ask you to say it again." Seeing that Tanjiro ignored him, the lower five asked again in an imperative tone. "Okay, you can say it as many times as you want me to. Your bond is fake. You are not like what a family should be." Tanjiro also took a deep breath and continued to speak to the lower moon 5. As soon as he finished speaking, the silk thread of the lower moon 5 flew towards Tanjiro. Tanjiro dodged at the fastest speed, but was still scratched on his face and forehead by the thin thread. Facing the intensive attacks of the lower moon 5, Tanjiro could only choose to dodge temporarily, but Tanjiro's speed could not keep up with the attacks of the upper moon 5, causing the silk thread to always touch Tanjiro and scratch him. In the end, the intensive attacks of the lower moon 5 made Tanjiro's breathing a little disordered. At this time, Tanjiro had to gasp and adjust his breathing as quickly as possible. The lower five suddenly stopped attacking Tanjiro, and then looked at the embarrassed Tanjiro, and said, "I will say this in advance, I will not kill you with one blow, I will cut your whole body into pieces, and then cut it into pieces. But if you take back what you said just now, I can give you a quick death." "I won't take back what I said just now, because I'm right, and you are the one who is wrong." Tanjiro's temper is like this. In front of something he believes is right, no one can change Tanjiro's mind. Just as Tanjiro shouted angrily, the wind suddenly blew around him. Chapter 227. Nezuko saves Tanjiro. The wind and waves blew away a lot of the strong ghost smell around, and the wind and waves did not seem to leave immediately, but kept hovering near the battlefield where Tanjiro was. Feeling the decrease in the concentration of the surrounding smell, Tanjiro was overjoyed. "God really helps me. The pungent smell has become lighter, allowing me to distinguish the smell of silk threads, so that I can better deal with the attack of the lower five. Humph, a little more stubborn than I thought, but it doesn't make any difference." The lower five muttered to himself when he heard Tanjiro's very tough words. With the help of the wind and waves, Tanjiro had adjusted his breathing and took the initiative to attack the lower five. The lower five also launched a spider silk thread to counterattack Tanjiro, who was rushing towards him, but Tanjiro, who could already sense the movement of the silk thread with his nose, easily jumped into the air to predict and dodge this silk thread attack in advance. The lower five was not idle either. When Tanjiro jumped up, it threw another thread at the place where Tanjiro fell. Tanjiro responded by launching the water breathing, for my water surface slash. Tanjiro thought that, after cutting the thread at the same time, by slashing the water surface, he would cut off the neck of the lower 5. As the saying goes, imagination is full, reality is very skinny. After Tanjiro's Nichiren sword touched the thread of the lower 5, it broke with a clang. Tanjiro was stunned. Just when Tanjiro was stunned, the dangerous breath instantly awakened Tanjiro. Tanjiro twisted his body to the maximum extent, making his body tilt to one side as much as possible. Although Tanjiro had dodged to the greatest extent, a long bloody wound appeared on his cheek caused by the thread. Then Tanjiro's body fell sideways and rolled on the ground for several circles. Tanjiro, who fell to the ground, did not dare to lie on the ground for too long. He stood up as quickly as possible and took a fighting stance against the lower string 5 again. Looking at the broken Nichiren sword in his hand, Tanjiro began to lose his composure. What should I do? The blade is actually broken. If it was senior Bai Yu, this would definitely not happen. Since my blade cannot cut its silk thread, I will dodge its silk thread, get close to it, and cut its neck. Soon, in a panic, Tanjiro had a new plan. He chose to actively stick to the lower string 5 again, but the lower string 5 had already noticed Tanjiro's intention, and the silk thread attacks became denser, so Tanjiro could only dodge continuously. In the end, Tanjiro could only barely get close to it. After leading Tanjiro into the encirclement, the lower string 5 did not want to continue to tease Tanjiro, and suddenly pulled all the silk threads on the fingers of both hands, and then the silk threads formed a huge spider web covering Tanjiro's head. Oh no, I can't hide anymore. Tanjiro looked up at the huge spider web and suddenly felt desperate. At this critical moment, Nezuko in the wooden box of mist spruce suddenly broke out of the box, then turned over and spread her hands to block Tanjiro. The spider web woven by the sharp silk threads of the lower 5 immediately fell on Nezuko's body, and immediately the dense blood cuts on Nezuko's body by the silk threads immediately spurted out a lot of blood. Chapter 228 I must get it. The lower 5 was also shocked by this sudden change. His eyes and mouth opened wide, and his hands began to tremble. The female ghost who was watching the show on the side was also shocked by Nezuko's appearance. She couldn't help but sigh in her heart. The box behind this ghost hunter actually contains a girl, but the girl's breath doesn't seem to be human, but a ghost. Nezuko. Tanjiro didn't expect Nezuko to appear at this time to help him block this fatal attack. He was scared and nervous and screamed. Nezuko, who helped Tanjiro block the attack, fell asleep again, probably because of excessive blood loss, and fell on Tanjiro's chest. Tanjiro immediately supported Nezuko and then laid her down on a tree trunk. Nezuko. Nezuko. I'm sorry. Brother asked you to protect me again. Tanjiro apologized to the unconscious Nezuko with great remorse. At this time, Tanjiro's mind was completely focused on Nezuko, and he didn't care about the lower moon 5 at all. The lower moon 5's whole body was shaking, and his eyes were fixed on Tanjiro and Nezuko. The lower moon 5 raised his shaking hand, pointed at Nezuko, and asked Tanjiro tremblingly, "Then that woman, is she your sister? So what? You bastard. You actually hurt Nezuko like this. It's absolutely unforgivable. I must kill you." Tanjiro said to the lower moon 5 angrily. Sisters. 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 The lower string 5 kept repeating these two words. The female ghost, who felt that the lower string 5 was a little abnormal, immediately looked at the lower string 5 and tried to call the lower string 5's name. "Lee, what's wrong with you? Has his sister become a ghost?" They have become ghosts, but they still want to be together. The sister stood up to protect her brother. This is the real bond. I want it so much. I want it so much. I must get it. The lower string 5 gradually became crazy. The female ghost heard the words of the lower string 5 and felt a sense of crisis in her heart because the female ghost had been following the lower string 5 for more than a day or two and naturally knew the lower string 5's temper. Because its so-called family has been replaced one after another. If the lower string 5 gets Nezuko's family, it will definitely be abandoned by the lower string 5. "Lei, I am your sister. Please don't abandon your sister, okay? Don't abandon your sister." The female ghost immediately pleaded with the lower string 5. "Shut up. The lower 5 roared in dissatisfaction, and then suddenly threw his hand in the direction of the female ghost, and 3 sharp silk threads were thrown out. Instantly, the female ghost body was cut into several sections, and then the sharp silk threads hit the mud, raising a huge cloud of dust, and the nearby trees were also cut in half by the silk threads. This formation was much more swift and fierce than when it was used against Tanjiro. If the lower 5 had used this posture to deal with Tanjiro at that time, even if Nezuko came out to block the attack for Tanjiro, Tanjiro would probably still be cut into pieces by the silk threads. Chapter 229 Negotiation. Tanjiro was also frightened by the brutality of the lower string 5. It seemed that the so-called family was probably a collection of people that he had gathered together just to fill the gap in his heart. In the end, you didn't fulfill your duties. I don't need a waste like you. The lower string 5 said, very unhappy. Why? I have been trying to be your sister. Let me save it. The head of the female ghost was cut off and played the sympathy card to the lower string 5 in fear and wanted to use the identity of a sister to get a chance to live. Then you go and kill all the guys wandering around in the mountains now. Only then can I forgive your behavior just now. The lower string 5 coldly ordered the female ghost, because the female ghost had been her sister for a long time. I know. I'll go kill them now. The female ghost trembled and agreed, and then the body that had healed back carefully picked up the head. In the end, the female ghost did not dare to be negligent at all and left with her head in her arms at the first time. Female ghost was really afraid that if she dragged her feet a little, she would upset lower moon 5, so she didn't dare to wait until the head was taken back before leaving. Little brother, let's talk. Lower moon 5 was planning to negotiate with Tanjiro at this time. Tanjiro looked at lower moon 5 in surprise, not quite understanding what lower moon 5 wanted to talk about. I'm moved by you two brothers and sisters. Seeing your bond, I was trembling with excitement. This kind of emotion cannot be described in words. However, if you are killed by me, it will become very sad. However, I have a way to avoid such a tragedy. As long as you hand your sister over to me, I will spare your life. Lower moon 5 told Tanjiro about his plan. Tanjiro refused without any thought. What nonsense are you talking about? I will make your sister my sister, starting today. Lower moon 5 continued. How can I agree to this kind of thing? Nezuko is not a doll for you to play with. She has her own consciousness and feelings. She can't become your sister. Tanjiro had no intention of agreeing to the lower string 5. It's okay. Don't worry. I will create a bond. I'm stronger than her. This is a bond of fear. I will tell her the consequences of resisting me. The lower string 5 continued to say to Tanjiro. Hearing the extremely twisted words of the lower string 5, Tanjiro was immediately angry and cursed at the lower string 5. Don't joke with me, you bastard. That's just using fear to bind people. It's not a bond between family members at all. You are talking nonsense. I will kill you. In this case, I will kill you and then take your sister away. The lower string 5 saw that there was no room for negotiation with Tanjiro, so he also planned to kill Tanjiro. Before that, I will chop off your neck. Tanjiro said as he unloaded the mist spruce wooden box from his back and then took a fighting posture against the lower string 5. Good momentum. But can you beat me? I'm one of the 12 demon moons. The only reason you're alive now is because I didn't intend to kill you easily. The lower 5 found it ridiculous when he saw Tanjiro looking like he was going to fight him to the death. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 230, Zenitsu is saved. As time passed, the poison in Zenitsu Agatsuma's body began to take effect little by little. Even though Zenitsu Agatsuma had tried very hard to use the thunder breathing method to delay the invasion of the poison, this method was only a temporary solution after all. As long as the poison was still there, it was only a matter of time before he turned into a spider. It's getting harder to breathe, and my hands and feet feel like they've disappeared. Zenitsu Agatsuma muttered to himself in great pain. Just when Zenitsu Agatsuma's consciousness was extremely blurred, it seemed as if he saw a huge beautiful butterfly flying towards him. He couldn't help but sigh from the bottom of his heart. It's so beautiful. Finally, the huge beautiful butterfly turned into a petite girl in Zenitsu Agatsuma's sight. This girl was Shinobu, one of the 9 pillars of the Demon Slayer Corps. He searched for Shinobu on the west side of the Soto Spider Mountain and found Zenitsu Agatsuma here. Shinobu, who was standing in front of Zenitsu Agatsuma, couldn't help but smile and said to Zenitsu Agatsuma, "Hello. Are you okay?" Zenitsu Agatsuma couldn't speak now and could only watch Shinobu. Seeing that Zenitsu Agatsuma didn't answer him, Shinobu muttered to himself again. It seems that he can't speak anymore. But you are very smart. You actually know how to use breathing to slow down the spread of the poison. After that, Shinobu took out a small wooden box from his arms, opened the small wooden box, took out a syringe containing an antidote, and finally injected the antidote into Zenitsu Agatsuma. Okay, you are fine now. But it will take a long time to recover before your hands and feet can grow back again. After Shinobu finished speaking, he looked around again and found that there were still many members who were not too seriously poisoned and could be treated. So he took out a flare from his arms and fired it into the sky. Just stay here and wait for rescue. There will be members from the hidden department coming over later. Shinobu finally said to Zenitsu Agatsuma and then floated away lightly like a butterfly. After injecting the antidote, Zenitsu Agatsuma could feel that his breathing was much easier, but Zenitsu Agatsuma still didn't have the chance to say thank you to anyone. About 10 minutes later, a large number of masked and mysterious, hidden units came to the war zone, where Agatsuma Zenitsu was, and began to rescue the survivors. On Shinichi and Shinji's side, after Tanjiro and Inosuke left, the two brothers not only kept alert to the surrounding situation, but the younger brother Shinji kept telling his brother about Bai Yu's majestic performance during the selection. This time, Shinichi did not dislike Shinji's constant bragging about Bai Yu, but listened with relish, because even if Bai Yu really died, in order to deal with the two lower string demons of the 12 demon moons, Shinichi still admitted that Bai Yu's genius was better than his A-level team member. However, just when the two brothers relaxed their vigilance, they could not help but hear the sound of very fast footsteps in the distance. The two brothers immediately stopped talking and stood up to be alert. Suddenly, a large amount of silk thread suddenly sprayed out from the woods towards the two brothers, instantly wrapping them into a spider silk cocoon. Oh no, it's a ghost. Shinji, who was wrapped in a round cocoon of spider silk, said in horror. Chapter 231, Shinobu's elusive appearance. Without saying anything, Shinji picked up the Nichirin sword and planned to break out of the cocoon, but after trying, he found that he couldn't cut the cocoon at all. The one who attacked the brothers Shinichi and Shinji was a female ghost who had just saved her life from the hands of the lower string 5. At this time, she was trying hard to complete the task that the lower string 5 had given her. If this matter could not be done well, she would not have to see the lower string 5 again, because going there would also lead to death. After the female ghost easily wrapped the brothers Shinichi and Shinji with the spider cocoon, she came to the cocoon. Seeing the spider cocoon still jumping restlessly, the female ghost said with some pride, "The cocoon I made is very soft, but also very tough. Only the cocoon will produce a dissolving liquid to dissolve the clothes that are in the way, and then it will begin to dissolve your body, and finally become the nutrients I absorb." Wow, so amazing. It can actually shoot silk threads from the palm of your hand. But why don't you just eat the body? Is it because of my bad teeth? Just when the ghost girl was talking to herself complacently, Shinobu, who appeared out of nowhere, was already standing behind the ghost girl, and his body was very close to her, and what he just said was said in the ghost girl's ear. Shinobu's closeness without anyone noticing made the ghost girl's expression freeze, her eyes widened, and her body froze in place at that moment. Good evening. The moonlight is so beautiful tonight. Ninja took the initiative to greet the ghost girl again. In extreme fear, the ghost girl regained control of her frozen body and suddenly leaped forward, distanced herself from Ninja, and finally turned around and launched a spider cocoon attack behind her. Dense spider cocoons shot out towards Ninja's position, and Ninja immediately dodged with light steps. While dodging, Ninja's figure was getting closer and closer to the ghost girl. Ninja's nimble figure was like a butterfly, and her sleeves dancing in the wind were like a butterfly flapping its wings. Relying on very nimble body movements to dodge, Ninja's legs immediately stepped on the ghost girl's belly, and then her feet took turns to kick the ghost girl's belly, and finally kicked the ghost girl to the ground, and Ninja's butt sat down, sitting the ghost girl under her butt. If this ninja sat on a man like this, he would probably be sitting on a jack. I don't know if she has ever used this trick on a man. You don't seem to be willing to get along with me, Shinobu said to Ghost Girl, with a smile on her face. Ghost Girl saw that she was easily suppressed in a few moves, and she could imagine how powerful the girl in front of her was, so she took out her best trick of pity. Wait a minute. Please, spare my life. I was forced to do this. If I disobey the order, I will be killed. Ghost Girl was terrified, scared, and wronged, and begged Shinobu, who was sitting on her. So that's how it is. How pitiful. Let me help you. This way we can get along with each other. Shinobu still showed her intention to help Ghost Girl with a smile and intended to be friends with her. Will you really help me? I'm a ghost. Ghost Girl couldn't believe that a ghost hunter would say such a thing. Chapter 232. Shinobu's Yandere tribute. Yes, but if we want to get along well, you have to answer a few questions for me first. So, you look so cute. How many people did you eat? Shinobu showed a more amiable smile and asked Ghost Girl without any malice. Ghost Girl was silent for a while, as if she was brewing her emotions. Tears could not help flowing from her eyes, and then she answered very reluctantly. 5 people, those were his orders. I had no choice but to obey. You don't have to lie, I know everything. The move you just used to lock our team members in the spider cocoon was very powerful. You should have eaten more than 80 people, right? Shinobu already knew that Ghost Girl was lying, so she exposed her lie. I didn't eat that many, I only ate 5 people. Ghost Girl still insisted that she only ate 5 people. I came from the west, little girl, it's the west. Shinobu pointed to Ghost Girl in a direction, as if to give her a hint. I saw a lot of spider cocoons like this on the West Mountain. All the people in the cocoons were dissolved, and no one survived. There are 14 spider cocoons there alone, and 14 people died. Not 5 as you said. I'm not angry, I'm just confirming the correct number of deaths. After listening to what Shinobu said, female ghost couldn't figure out Shinobu's train of thought, so she asked in confusion, what's the point of confirming this kind of thing? Of course, it's to make you accept the punishment and regain your life. Shinobu answered excitedly. Punishment? Female ghost still didn't understand what Shinobu meant by punishment. In this way, we can get along well. If you don't get punished for taking the lives of innocent people, then the people who are killed will die with regrets. Shinobu said, and suddenly a hand stretched out to female ghost's face, and then suddenly used her fingers to pry open female ghost's eyelids. I will dig out your eyeballs, or cut open your stomach, and take out your internal organs. Shinobu continued to speak, and his palm moved to female ghost's abdomen again. I will punish you according to the number of people you kill. When you endure the pain, your crime will be forgiven. We must work together. The more Shinobu said, the more intense the smile on her face became. The female ghost was frightened by Shinobu's perverted words. As a ghost, she was really ashamed of herself at this moment. The female ghost knew very well that if the Shinobu in front of her was not a ghost hunter but a ghost, she would definitely be a more perverted existence than the lower 5. Don't be afraid. It's okay, you are a ghost. So you won't die at all, and there will be no sequelae. Shinobu saw the female ghost, who was frightened by her, and immediately clenched her little pink fists more excitedly. You crazy woman, go to hell. The female ghost felt that she was fooled by Shinobu at this time. What she said about helping and getting along well was completely bullshit. In an instant, the female ghost raised her hands and fired spider cocoons at Shinobu, who was sitting on her. When Shinobu saw the ghost girl raised her hands to him, she did not hesitate and jumped up to distance herself from the ghost girl. However, the ghost girl's spider cocoon still sprayed towards Shinobu. Chapter 233, The Nichiren Sword Without a Blade. Because it was a long-planned attack by the ghost girl, the spider cocoon shot out at an extremely fast speed, and the huge back thrust pushed the ghost girl to the ground. However, when the spider cocoon shot towards Shinobu, it inexplicably turned into broken lines all over the sky when it approached Shinobu. Shinobu's figure then slowly fell from the air. After landing, Shinobu said with some disappointment, "It seems that we can't get along well. What a pity." After that, the sound of Shinobu's Nichiren sword being unsheathed was heard. After rolling on the ground for several circles, the ghost girl stood up again, and then turned around with a fierce turn to launch a supplementary attack on Shinobu who had landed. But when she turned around, she found that Shinobu's figure was not behind her. Looking around, she still didn't see Shinobu's figure. Finally, the ghost girl's sixth sense prompted her to look up at the sky. Shinobu, who jumped high, had already pulled out her Nichiren sword and then stabbed the ghost girl from top to bottom. Shinobu's attack caused a visual illusion for ghost girl. In her vision, she saw countless butterflies flying towards her until every butterfly passed by her. Then blood came out of her forehead, throat, and chest. The blood on her chest instantly dyed ghost girl's clothes red. In reality, Shinobu's figure passed in front of ghost girl like a stream of light, then landed and rolled, half crouching on the ground to complete her attack. Breath of insects, dance of butterflies, playfulness. The person who completed the attack recited her moves and finally stood up slowly. At this time, you can see that the Nichiren sword in Shinobu's hand is actually a sword without a full blade. Only the tip and the jaw have a blade. A closer look reveals that the missing blade in the middle of the blade does not seem to be caused by battle damage, but rather it seems that when the sword was forged, the blade was deliberately not made with a blade. Ghost girl belatedly covered her bleeding neck and then said with lingering fear, "My head wasn't chopped off." Ghost girl turned around and looked at Shinobu standing behind her. Soon she noticed Shinobu's Nichiren sword and was puzzled. Why is it a sword like this? I understand. This crazy woman can't chop off her head because of her petite body. In this case, I will definitely win. Ghost girl suddenly became a little proud because as long as Shinobu couldn't cut off her neck, she would not die. If they fought a war of attrition like this, people would definitely die. Thinking of this, ghost girl raised her hand to attack Shinobu with the cocoon again. But just as she raised her hand, her heart suddenly hurt, and then she felt something was wrong with her body, and her hands kept shaking. After that, there was another painful heartbeat, and ghost girl immediately covered her mouth with her hand, but blood still vomited out of her mouth. Immediately, the ghost girl's body began to shake, her eyes widened, and there were extremely dense bloodshot eyes. Finally, the ghost girl's pale skin began to spread a lot of purple, and at the same time, the ghost girl's throat felt suffocated, her mouth opened wide, and she made a suffocating gasp. However, in the end, her body suddenly stiffened, and she fell to the ground with a hideous and terrifying expression before death. Chapter 234 Tanjiro's Murderous Intention. When Tanjiro's attention was focused on him, Lower Moon 5 suddenly swung out a thread. Tanjiro thought that Lower Moon 5 had attacked him, and his nerves were tense to the extreme. Just when he wanted to dodge, Tanjiro found that the target of the thread was not him at all, but Nezuko, who was lying beside him. Tanjiro wanted to stop it, but it was too late. In the end, he could only blame himself helplessly, and shouted Nezuko's name helplessly, "Nezuko." Nezuko was suddenly pulled over by the thread of Lower Moon 5, and then fell into the arms of Lower Moon 5. Finally, Lower Moon 5 held Nezuko's neck and held her in front of him. At the same time, Lower Moon 5's other hand was raised in the direction of Tanjiro, and the threads on the 5 fingers were ready at any time. "Okay, I've got her. I've done your job for you. You can leave now." Although Tanjiro was not very cooperative and his attitude was not very good, the lower element 5 still kept his promise and planned to spare Tanjiro's life. Tanjiro saw that Nezuko was abducted by the lower element 5, so how could he have the intention to leave? He stomped his feet and rushed towards the lower element 5. I told you, you can leave now. If you don't want to leave, I'll kill you. The lower element 5 saw that Tanjiro still had no intention of listening to him and suddenly became a little unhappy. After saying that, he raised his hand and 5 silk threads immediately hit Tanjiro like a whip. Tanjiro looked at the flying silk threads, shoveled his feet on the ground to make an emergency deceleration brake, then kicked his feet backwards and lay flat instantly. One of the silk threads just passed in front of Tanjiro, and Tanjiro barely avoided the attack. He flipped back and leaned over with one hand on the ground to stabilize his body. When he looked again, Tanjiro found that Nezuko in the hand of the lower string 5 had disappeared. Where did this guy take Nezuko? Tanjiro asked anxiously and worriedly. Just when Tanjiro was confused, drops of blood suddenly fell on Tanjiro's broken blade. Tanjiro looked up and saw Nezuko hanging in the air by a large number of silk threads. Those silk threads were very sharp and all of them were tied into Nezuko's fair and smooth skin. Nezuko also woke up from her coma because of the pain and then struggled. Nezuko. Tanjiro screamed at Nezuko heartbreakingly. This scene almost made Tanjiro cry. You bastard, let Nezuko go. Tanjiro said to the lower string 5 in an extremely angry tone with a ferocious expression. The behavior of the lower moon 5 made Tanjiro want to kill Nezuko because Nezuko was Tanjiro's Achilles heel. Stop making so much noise. She won't die at this level. She's a demon. We are just beginning to train her. The lower moon 5 said indifferently. Tanjiro could no longer suppress the anger and murderous intent in his heart and rushed towards the lower moon 5 again. The lower moon 5 raised his hand again and 5 silk threads swept towards Tanjiro again. Tanjiro tried his best to dodge, but one of the silk threads suddenly turned and entangled his foot and then pulled violently, tripping Tanjiro to the ground. Chapter 235, The Pranks of the Lower 5. Before Tanjiro could get up after falling, the lower string 5 had already walked in front of him and kicked him on the chin, causing Tanjiro to turn several circles in the air and then crash into a tree trunk. Immediately, a mouthful of blood spurted out of Tanjiro's mouth. As soon as he spit out the blood, Tanjiro looked up and saw that the lower string 5 was already standing in front of Tanjiro with one of his hands raised. Then, he punched Tanjiro in the face, knocking him around. Two consecutive heavy blows made Tanjiro's body weaken all of a sudden, and the anger and murderous intent just now had dissipated. Tanjiro tried his best to adjust his breathing, using breathing to suppress the spread of the injury and relieve the pain caused by the injury. You are not stupid enough to think that, as long as you can get close to me, you can cut off my head, the lower string 5 said, and walked towards Tanjiro again. Seeing the approaching lower string 5, Tanjiro had no intention of pulling away. After all, Tanjiro had intended to get close to him and then chop off his head. Therefore, the lower string 5's initiative to approach was a very good opportunity for Tanjiro. Soon, the lower string 5 walked in front of Tanjiro and then spread his hands and said to Tanjiro, "Okay, come on, I'll give you one chance, chop it once and let me see." Tanjiro took a few deep breaths, adjusted his state as much as possible again, and then suddenly swung the broken blade in his hand and swung it hard at the neck of the lower string 5. The lower string 5 reacted very quickly, turned his head to avoid Tanjiro's surprise attack, and then hit Tanjiro on both sides of his face with a left hook and a right hook. Tanjiro's body was hit by the fist of the lower string 5 and turned around again. As a result, Tanjiro took advantage of the inertia generated by the circle and turned around to swing the knife again. This time, the lower string 5 did not dodge at all because he did not intend to tease Tanjiro this time, but to fulfill his promise just now and give Tanjiro a chance to chop off his head. The broken blade hit the neck of the lower string 5 and only made a metallic sound caused by the resonance of the blade, but no matter how hard Tanjiro tried, the blade could not cut the neck of the lower string 5, not even a scratch. The lower string 5 gave Tanjiro such a chance because he knew that Tanjiro could not cut his neck. The reason for this is also very simple. The lower string 5 wanted to completely destroy Tanjiro's confidence. I told you. Your idea is stupid. My body is harder than my silk thread. You can't even cut my silk thread, let alone cut my neck. Fool. After the lower string 5 finished speaking, he raised his leg and kicked Tanjiro in the stomach again, and immediately kicked Tanjiro more than 10 meters away. Nezuko, who was suspended in the air by the silk thread, saw Tanjiro being attacked like this, and she couldn't help but struggle violently. The lower 5 couldn't stand the restless Nezuko, so he tightened the thread that was wrapped around Nezuko again, and the thread penetrated deeper into Nezuko's flesh and blood. A large amount of blood spurted out, and finally Nezuko slowly fell into a deep sleep due to the aggravation of her injuries. Tanjiro, who fell to the ground several times before stopping, immediately propped himself up with difficulty, and then half knelt on the ground. Is this the strength that the 12 demon moons should have? It's really too strong. Chapter 236 The Final Resistance. They are totally incomparable to the previous demon. The 12 demon moons with the high concentration of Musen Kibutsuji's blood are really too strong. Tanjiro realized at this time that the gap between him and Bai Yu was not as close as he imagined. It turned out that the gap between him and Bai Yu was like the gap between the top and the bottom of the pyramid. Calm down, Tanjiro. Now is not the time to deny yourself. Since the lower 5 doesn't want to kill me easily, I have to take advantage of his psychology. Tanjiro's mentality was quickly adjusted back by himself. Fainted. It's really special. It's different from us. Interesting. The lower 5 looked at Nezuko, who fell into a coma and couldn't help muttering. Tanjiro, who adjusted his breathing and mentality, planned to try to use water breathing, picking up the form and life circulation to open a breakthrough. Water breathing. 10 shape form, life flowing. This move is a move in water breathing that can deal continuous burst damage. Although the initial attack power may not be as good as the first shape form and water surface slash, the inertia generated by the body's rotation and the rhythm generated by the breathing will make the subsequent attack damage higher and higher. Although theoretically, the rhythm of water can be stacked without limit, the superposition of rhythm is limited by the physical strength, stamina and strength of the weapon itself. If the physical strength cannot keep up, and the superposition is forced, the meridians and muscles will be damaged at the least, and the death will be on the spot. Even if there is no physical limitation, the strength of the weapon itself will become a limitation. If the power condensed by the weapon is too strong, it will also destroy the weapon itself. At that time, Tanjiro was planning to use life flowing to deal with the spider demon, but Tanjiro did not have the opportunity to stack the rhythm of water at all, and was knocked out of the battlefield by a home run by the spider demon. Full concentration, water breathing, Shokugata, life flowing. Tanjiro immediately took the attacking stance, and at the same time, he began to enter the breathing rhythm of Shokugata. The next moment, Tanjiro stamped his feet fiercely, and ripples of water splashed around his body. Then, Tanjiro rushed towards the lower string 5 like a bullet. Tanjiro knew that the lower string 5 would definitely use silk threads to restrain him, and Tanjiro planned to attack those silk threads, to superimpose the rhythm of water on the blade, to make up for his lack of strength. Don't you understand? You're wasting your efforts. Seeing that Tanjiro still refused to accept reality and rushed forward, the lower string 5 immediately raised his hands, and the sharp silk threads, under the control of the lower string 5, whipped towards Tanjiro. Tanjiro grasped the time and immediately slashed at the silk threads with the broken blade. The sharp and hard silk thread hit the blade, but it was not cut off. The impact force of the silk thread was not great, so after being cut by Tanjiro, it changed its running route and floated to Tanjiro's side. Then, Tanjiro twisted his body, dodged, and turned back to cut the silk thread again. When the blade cuts the silk thread, some water droplets will splash out. These water droplets are the rhythm of water gathered on the blade. If it weren't for Tanjiro's momentum, while superimposing the rhythm of water contained in the blade, he would be approaching the lower 5th little by little. 3 swords, 4 swords, and at the 5th sword, the edge of Tanjiro's broken blade, because of the large amount of water rhythm gathered, actually condensed into a water dragon, and coiled on the edge of the broken blade. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 237 Tanjiro's Memories. The water dragon seemed to have life. As Tanjiro waved his arm, it twisted its body and bit the approaching silk thread. As a result, the silk thread was bitten off by the water dragon. It's cut off. As long as we get close to it and find a chance to cut off its neck, we will win. Tanjiro was overjoyed. The superimposed power finally showed up in the sixth sword. The lower 5 was surprised to see that Tanjiro had cut off his silk thread. At the same time, he also saw the characteristics of Tanjiro's moves. Increasing the power of the blade by rotating your body? It seems that we have to do something serious. The lower 5 sighed secretly. Although you did give me a surprise, don't be silly and think that this is my hardest silk thread. After the lower 5 finished speaking, his pale hands began to turn blood red, and the silk thread connecting his fingers also turned from white to blood red. Blood Demon Jutsu, Blood Web Cage. The serious lower string 5 used Blood Demon Jutsu on Tanjiro, who rushed towards him. The lower string 5 spread his hands and a huge spider web suddenly appeared around Tanjiro, covering him. Goodbye, you idiot. The lower string 5 did not forget to say goodbye to Tanjiro after leaving. While talking, the lower string 5 suddenly pulled his hand, and the huge blood red spider web quickly tightened. Tanjiro looked at the spider web that was wrapping around him, and the hope that had just risen was crushed by the lower string 5 again. It's over. This level of silk thread, there is no way to deal with it. Just when the god of death had announced the judgment on Tanjiro, time seemed to stop, and Tanjiro's mind suddenly emerged with bits and pieces of his previous life. Countless fragments of memory emerged in Tanjiro's brain, including the scene of Tanjiro and Nezuko playing happily together in front of their father when they were young. Standing in front of his father in his memory, Tanjiro's heart was sour. Tanjiro's father seemed to sense the existence of his son in different realms, so he suddenly said, "Tanjiro, you must learn to breathe. Adjust your breathing and become one with the god of fire." Then the scene changed. In an empty snowy field, the snow was surrounded by torches, and Tanjiro's father danced in the middle of the snow, as if he was holding a ceremony. Tanjiro couldn't help but look at it in a daze. At this time, a woman's voice came from the side. Tanjiro looked over and found that it was his mother squatting beside the young him, saying, "Look, Dad is dancing the Kagura dance." After dancing the Kagura dance, the father suddenly walked towards Tanjiro, and the Tanjiro he walked towards was not the young Tanjiro in the memory fragment, but the grown-up Tanjiro in his own memory fragment. Then, the surrounding scenery disappeared, and only Tanjiro's father was still there. It seemed that Tanjiro's father had always been living in Tanjiro's spiritual world, and had always been with him. Looking at his father standing in front of him, Tanjiro couldn't help but shout, "Dad!" His father suddenly put his hand on Tanjiro's shoulder, patted it gently, and said, "Tanjiro, all your father can leave you is the breathing method of Kagurame and the pair of earrings. I hope you can pass on the will of Lord Kagami. You can definitely do it." Chapter 238, The God of Fire's Dance and Breathing. When Tanjiro heard his father actually talking to him, he hugged his father excitedly and said, "Dad, are you not dead?" Just as Tanjiro hugged his father's figure suddenly disappeared in front of Tanjiro. Tanjiro immediately shouted to the empty space, "Dad, Dad, why are you gone?" When Tanjiro was worried about his father's disappearance, his father's voice rang again, "Tanjiro, there is no time. Go back." As soon as the voice fell, Tanjiro's heart suddenly trembled, and then his consciousness completely returned to reality. Immediately, Tanjiro suddenly forced to change the way of breathing, and forcibly transformed the water breathing method into the Kagura dance breathing method taught to him by his father. Fire God Dance, activate. With the activation of Fire God Dance, the water dragon coiled around Tanjiro's broken blade suddenly turned into a fire dragon. With the strong confidence given by his father, Tanjiro turned 360 degrees and chopped at the tightening blood red spider web. In an instant, the blood red spider web was chopped into pieces by Tanjiro. When the flames on the fire dragon touched the silk threads of the spider web, they immediately burned up. "Thank you, Dad." After Tanjiro successfully resolved the situation of certain death with the help of the Fire God Dance breathing method, he couldn't help but thank his father in his heart. But now is not the time to stop. If I stop now, the backlash from the forced switch from water breathing to fire god dance breathing will make my body unable to move. Before that, I must chop off the head of the lower string 5. After Tanjiro cut off the blood net cage, his body continued to rush towards the lower string 5. The face of the lower string 5 showed an extremely surprised expression. He didn't expect Tanjiro to be able to resolve his ultimate move. This guy, is he going to stop? The lower 5 was also angered by Tanjiro's repeated rise. He immediately raised his hand again and laid many dense blood-colored threads in front of Tanjiro. At the same time, the lower 5 swung his other hand towards Tanjiro, and many red threads shot towards Tanjiro. Tanjiro was now taking advantage of the powerful increase in the breathing of the fire god's music and dance. He had no fear at all. He cut through the thorns and cut off the threads in front of him. As for those threads that shot over, Tanjiro cut them off if he could. If he couldn't cut them off, Tanjiro didn't choose to avoid them perfectly, because that would slow down his forward speed. So Tanjiro could only choose to swing slightly to ensure that those threads would not affect his actions if they scratched him. This choice caused Tanjiro to have many bloody wounds on his body, but fortunately they were not fatal and did not affect his actions. With such momentum, Tanjiro quickly approached the lower moon 5, only 3 body lengths away from him. The lower moon 5's expression also became a little nervous, and he immediately stood up and jumped back, trying to distance himself from Tanjiro. At the same time, he swung his hands towards Tanjiro and launched a thread attack on Tanjiro. However, at this time, the thread attack of the lower moon 5 no longer posed any threat to Tanjiro. As soon as the thread was swung out, it was cut off by Tanjiro. The lower moon 5 jumped back several times in a row, but still couldn't get rid of Tanjiro. At the same time, Tanjiro's figure was getting closer and closer. The lower moon 5 knew that Tanjiro's broken blade would probably chop his neck in the next second. Chapter 239 Awakening of Nezuko. The thread of the gap has appeared. Tanjiro, who sensed the thread of the gap, swung at the neck of the lower moon 5 without hesitation. The lower moon 5 knew that Tanjiro was going to cut his neck, so he immediately turned his palm towards Tanjiro and sprayed out the thread. Seeing this, Tanjiro had no intention of dodging, because Tanjiro knew that this was his last chance. If he chose to dodge at this time, Tanjiro would hardly have the opportunity to burst out like this. Therefore, even if they died together, Tanjiro would not give up this chance to kill. Even if you have to die, you bastard have to go with me. Tanjiro roared at the lower moon 5. Nezuko, your brother needs your help. Don't fall asleep anymore. Go help your brother. Don't let your brother die. Nezuko, who was sleeping, suddenly felt her mother calling her in her mind. Suddenly, Nezuko woke up again under this call. Nezuko, who had just woken up, seemed to have awakened her own blood demon art. In an instant, she used her own blood as a medium to launch the blood demon art, Blood Explosion. The silk threads that entangled Nezuko were all stained with Nezuko's blood. Then, after Nezuko launched her own blood demon art, Blood Explosion, the silk threads were instantly ignited by the blood and exploded. The pink flame spread along the silk threads. Because the silk threads on Nezuko's body were connected to the lower string 5, the pink flames immediately burned along those silk threads to the body of the lower string 5, and then a wall of fire exploded in front of the lower string 5, and the wall of fire directly burned the silk threads that the lower string 5 had sprayed towards Tanjiro into ashes. At this time, Tanjiro had already swung his hand holding the sun wheel sword heavily, and the sword passed through the wall of fire and finally cut the neck of the lower string 5. When the blade touched the neck of the lower string 5, a lot of sparks were immediately produced, and it paused for a moment. Tanjiro still failed to cut off the neck of the lower string 5 with his own strength. At the same time, Nezuko's blood dripped onto the blade, and was absorbed by the blade. This is a bond between me and Nezuko. This is the bond that a family should have. Tanjiro knew that it was Nezuko's help to him, so with the help of Nezuko's blood, Tanjiro exerted force again, and the blade broke the neck of the lower string 5, leaving a gorgeous ring of flames. The surrounding environment was illuminated by this gorgeous and dazzling ring of flames. The head of the lower string 5 was completely separated from the body and was chopped off by Tanjiro. The ring of flames flashed and the fire blade on the broken blade also dissipated. Then, the body of the lower string 5 and Tanjiro fell to the ground one after another. The silk thread on Nezuko's body was also completely burned by the flames ignited by her blood, and then her figure fell from mid-air. Looking at Nezuko falling down, Tanjiro really wanted to go to Nezuko's side, but at this time Tanjiro's body was unable to move. Because of the forced change in breathing, Tanjiro's meridian suffered a great impact, so after Tanjiro fell down, he would not be able to move for a short time. Chapter 240, Being Tricked. Nezuko. Brother 1. Tanjiro sighed with relief as he looked at Nezuko, who fell to the ground without any movement. However, fortunately, it was my father's Kagura dance that saved me. It is a breathing method used for Kagura dance that has been passed down from generation to generation in my family. Although I don't know why it can be used to perform moves, thanks to it, I was saved. Tanjiro couldn't help but miss his father. If it wasn't for his father at that time, there would probably be no subsequent events. Just as Tanjiro was trying hard to crawl towards Nezuko, he suddenly felt a sharp pain all over his body, accompanied by tinnitus, dizziness and blurred vision. It hurt so much. Tanjiro immediately stopped all movements, endured the strong discomfort of his body, and lay there quietly. Although he was only 3 or 4 meters away from Nezuko at this time, Tanjiro really couldn't move anymore. Suddenly, a strong smell of ghost drifted into Tanjiro's nose, which made Tanjiro very nervous, because the smell was not from other ghosts, but from the lower moon 5. Logically speaking, after the neck of the ghost was chopped off, there shouldn't be such a strong smell. Could it be that he is not dead yet? Come to think of it, I didn't seem to smell the smell of the ghost when it turned into ashes after death. Tanjiro thought more and more that something was wrong, and then Tanjiro felt the breath behind him, but at this time Tanjiro no longer had the ability to look back to see the situation behind him, and could only ask very unwillingly and puzzledly, I clearly chopped off your head, how could you not be dead yet? Behind Tanjiro, the fallen body of the lower moon 5 had stood up, and the head of the lower moon 5 was also hung up by the spider silk. Do you really think you won? You are such a pathetic fool. Only weaklings like you like to comfort yourself with pathetic delusions. I chopped off my head with silk thread before you chopped it off. Now I've had enough. This time I plan to kill both you and your sister. I haven't been this angry in a long time. The body of the lower 5 took his head in his hand and put it back. After Tanjiro knew that he was tricked, he immediately endured the severe pain and tried to crawl forward with gritted teeth. He could only blame himself for his lack of experience. He didn't know that the ghost could choose to break his own neck to save his life. Move. Move. Stand up. As long as the breathing method is correct, no matter how tired the body is, it won't be a problem. This is what Dad said. Dad won't lie. You can definitely stand up and fight again. Tanjiro kept cheering himself up in his heart while breathing hard. I'm very confused. Why didn't the fire burn you? Only me and my thread were burned. Is it because you are her brother? You two siblings really disgust me. After saying this, the lower 5 suddenly clenched his hands and pulled, and several red threads were pulled out of his hands. Then, the lower 5 used these threads to weave a small net on his hands, and then launched another blood demon art at Tanjiro. Blood demon art, killing eye cage. Then, a circle marked by circular threads suddenly appeared on the ground, where Tanjiro was lying, and finally a large number of threads split out from the circle, and covered Tanjiro inside. Chapter 241 The two people collided again. The threads were oscillating regularly in the circle, and then the lower string 5 tightened the net wires in his hands, and the threads pressed towards Tanjiro. Water breathing, type 13, domain judgment. Bai Yu, who had been observing in the dark, took action at this time. If he didn't take action, Tanjiro would really be dead this time. The domain judgment directly marked the lower string 5 and its killing cage. The sharpened end sword energy immediately crushed the threads that were about to touch Tanjiro's body, and the body of the lower string 5 was also attacked by the sword energy, and was immediately cut into pieces by the sword energy. I don't know if the lower string 5 has experienced the feeling of being cut into pieces before. After all, most of the time, it is the lower string 5 that cuts people into pieces, so Bai Yu also intends to let it experience the feeling of being cut into pieces. As soon as Bai Yu's attack landed, Tomioka Giyu, who arrived later, just turned over Tanjiro's head. Originally, Tomioka Giyu was also planning to use his sword to save Tanjiro, but he didn't expect that he would be beaten to it as soon as he appeared. However, Tomioka Giyu was sure that this person was definitely not Shinobu, because Shinobu was not good at launching this kind of sword attack. In the end, Tomioka Giyu just did a somersault over Tanjiro's head and then landed in front of Tanjiro. Is it Senior Bai Yu who came to save me? Tanjiro looked at the person who appeared in front of him and couldn't help but mistake Tomioka Giyu for Bai Yu. At this time, Bai Yu saw that Tomioka Giyu had appeared gorgeously before him again, and he immediately laughed helplessly. After a careful look, Tanjiro realized that this person was not Bai Yu. Although the person in front of him was not Bai Yu, Tanjiro still felt a sense of familiarity. You did a good job. You can hold on until I get here. Tomioka Giyu first gave Tanjiro an affirmation of recognition, and then said loudly to the people around him, "Are you not going to show up yet? How long are you going to hide?" After Tanjiro heard Tomioka Giyu's voice, he recalled the first time he met him 2 years ago. However, Tomioka Giyu's words made Tanjiro look around. Is there any other person or demon? The body of the lower string 5, which was cut into pieces, gradually healed successfully again. The attack of Bai Yu just now made it extremely angry. Seeing Tomioka Giyu appear, the lower string 5 thought that the attack just now was launched by Tomioka Giyu, so he said angrily to Tomioka Giyu, "The annoying demon slayer core, come to get in the way again." Blood demon jutsu, cut thread rotation. The lower string 5 directly used its strongest blood demon jutsu on Tomioka Giyu. A large amount of red silk threads gathered into a huge disc in front of the lower string 5, and then the disc crushed towards Tomioka Giyu. With Tomioka Giyu's ability, he could definitely dodge this attack, but because there was an inactive Tanjiro lying behind him, he did not choose to dodge, but drew his sword, and used his own moves. Full concentration, water breathing, 11 style, calm. In Tomioka Giyu's spiritual world, along with his breathing, the turbulent river water around him rolled with the rhythm of his breathing, with extraordinary momentum. However, when the tip of Tomioka Giyu's sword touched the water surface in the spiritual world, the turbulent water surface suddenly became extremely calm, and the only movement was the ripples caused by the tip of Tomioka Giyu's sword touching the water surface. Chapter 242, Insect Pillar Kocho Ninja. Even if your head isn't chopped off, you can't be complacent. There are swordsmen like me who use poison to kill their targets. Shinobu said, spinning the Nichiren sword in her hand. Only her Nichiren sword can do such a gorgeous spin. If it were a normal blade, her hand would have been cut by the blade. Shinobu's Nichiren sword was transferred from her right hand to her left hand, and then her left hand continued to spin the Nichiren sword, and then it was held back by her right hand again, and finally she posed in a graceful posture. I'm the insect pillar of the Demon Slayer Corps, Shinobu Kocho. Among the pillars, I'm the only swordsman who cannot chop off the heads of demons. However, I made a poison that can kill demons, which is quite powerful. Shinobu Kocho introduced herself and boasted to the dead female ghost with some pride. After that, Shinobu Kocho finally reacted and then scratched her head with her left hand and said, "Sorry, I forgot that you were dead. You probably couldn't hear what I just said." Then, Shinobu Kocho no longer paid attention to the female ghost who died of poisoning, but rescued the brothers Shinichi and Shinji who were trapped in the spider cocoons. It was very simple for Shinobu Kocho, who was a pillar, to cut off these spider cocoons. Although strength is not her strong point, she is one of the 9 pillars after all, and she is at the top of the Demon Slayer Corps, so cutting a spider cocoon is naturally not a problem. When the brothers Shinichi and Shinji emerged from their cocoons, their clothes had been completely corroded. Their naked bodies appeared in front of the beautiful Shinobu Kocho, which made the brothers a little flustered. Shinobu Kocho did not seem to avoid it at all. Facing the embarrassed and overwhelmed brothers, she covered her face and smiled and joked, "Are you okay?" "It's okay. Where is that ghost? Is it dead? Why didn't its body dissipate?" Seeing that Shinobu Kocho didn't care, Shinichi relaxed immediately, but he still covered the key parts with his hands. Shinobu Kocho replied, "Don't worry. I killed it with the toxin extracted from wisteria flowers, so its body will not turn into ashes immediately, but will only rot slowly." Hearing this, Shinichi suddenly looked at Shinobu Kocho in surprise, and then his expression became extremely surprised, with his mouth wide open, as if he wanted to say something. Shinobu Kocho looked at the sudden change in Shinichi's expression, and then became a little confused. She turned her head to look at Shinichi and asked, "What's wrong? Is the dissolving liquid in the spider cocoon poisonous?" Shinichi took a breath, then raised his trembling hand, pointed at Shinobu Kocho, and asked tremblingly, "Are you the insect pillar who specializes in killing demons with poison?" Shinichi had naturally heard all kinds of rumors about the insect pillar. After all, the insect pillar was one of the 2 golden flowers among the 9 pillars. It was just that Shinichi didn't expect that he would have the honor to see the true face of the insect pillar. It was really beautiful. Yes. What's wrong? Shinobu Kocho still didn't know why Shinichi reacted like this. When Shinji heard Shinobu Kocho admit that he was a pillar of the Demon Slayer Corps, he couldn't help but look at him carefully. After all, as the lowest level D-level member, he couldn't see the existence of the pillar just because he wanted to. Even the A-level members were the same. However, the A-level members still had the opportunity to contact the pillars. That is, when the mission required it, the pillars would take the A-level members to do the mission. However, such missions that require a pillar to lead the team would not be available just because they are there. If a pillar leads the team, it means that the situation is very critical. So even if there is such an opportunity, it may be a one-way trip. At this time, Shinichi had turned into a pervert, staring at Shinobu Kocho. After seeing Shinichi's reaction, Shinobu Kocho knew that this guy Shinichi was confused by his own appearance. However, Shinobu Kocho was not angry, but smiled happily with narrowed eyes. After that, Shinobu Kocho did not intend to continue wasting time here, but took out a flare and fired it, and then explained to the brothers Shinichi and Shinji, "The rescue team will be here soon. You stay here to look after the 2 seriously injured team members. I'm going to see whether ghost, who forced this female ghost to obey orders is." Chapter 243. Don't rush. Tanjiro turned around and saw Tomioka Giyu using the 11th form, and he couldn't help but be a little surprised. Tanjiro thought that the moves after the 11th form could only be created by a genius like Bai Yu, but he didn't expect that Tomioka Giyu could also create his own 11th form. However, from the difference in the aura of the 2, Tanjiro knew that their 11th forms might be completely different. But to say which of the 11th forms is stronger, Tanjiro dare not comment rashly. So what about the 11th form? It will still be cut into pieces by my rotating threads. The lower 5 sneered with disdain. I saw that when the blood red silk thread disc was about to touch Tomioka Giyu, the silk threads that made up the disc inexplicably broke and floated in the air. Tomioka Giyu didn't make any moves to draw his sword, but just stood there quietly. The silk threads disintegrated and broke on their own as soon as they approached Tomioka Giyu. Is it a self-created field move? Bai Yu had already jumped onto the tree above Tomioka Giyu's head. Feeling the rhythm of Tomioka Giyu's breathing, Bai Yu had roughly figured out the rules of Tomioka Giyu's 11th form. Bai Yu saw Tomioka Giyu's 11th form, and calmness was a defensive move that had no offensive ability at all. It had something in common with his own 12th form, Dark Blade Strangling, in that both formed a layer of protection around themselves. However, the protection of Dark Blade Strangling mainly relied on the sword energy, while the protection of Calmness relied entirely on the rhythm of water generated by breathing, which was the difference between the 2. Secondly, Dark Blade Strangling was instantaneous, and the protection of sword energy could only last about 3 seconds. Calmness, on the other hand, could be maintained sustainably. As long as the opponent's attack did not stop, Tomioka Giyu could keep this state, but the premise was that the opponent could not break through this layer of protection and cause real damage to Tomioka Giyu. Because the 2 have different focuses, the release forms of the moves are also different. Under the naked eye, there is nothing in front of Giyu Tomioka, but there is an invisible barrier blocking Giyu Tomioka. Bai Yu can sense through spiritual perception that there is a protective layer formed by a large number of dense water rhythms in front of Giyu Tomioka. What? What happened? He didn't do anything. Why did the silk threads close to him break inexplicably? This is my hardest silk thread. The lower 5 was greatly shocked, and his attack was actually invalidated. What a joke. The lower 5 was angry and prepared to launch another round of key C rotation. The lower 5 didn't believe it would happen again. However, at this time, Giyu Tomioka moved and walked towards the lower 5. At this time, Bai Yu jumped down from the tree, blocked in front of Giyu Tomioka, and then stopped him. Don't be impatient. It's too easy to kill it with one knife. Bai Yu said to Tomioka Giyu without turning his head. Looking at Bai Yu in front of him wearing a blue water pattern robe, Tomioka Giyu's body couldn't help but pause, as if he saw his master Urokoda Kisakonji standing in front of him. At this time, the lower 5 saw another person jumping out and became even more angry. It was also because Bai Yu blocked Tomioka Giyu's attack that the lower 5's Kishi wheel had condensed again. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 244 Bai Yu's Torture. Go to hell, you annoying things. The lower 5 said, and the newly condensed rotation of grave threads rushed towards Bai Yu again. Without saying a word, Bai Yu directly activated the ghost god transformation. Suddenly, Bai Yu's appearance became weird, and dark purple ghost god patterns appeared on his face. Then, the ghost god Bai Yu directly punched at the silk thread disc with a punch. This punch was so powerful that a huge explosion sounded the moment it was thrown. At the moment of the explosion, the rotation of grave threads of the lower 5 was disintegrated by Bai Yu's punch. Those silk threads were not broken by Bai Yu's punch, but were completely destroyed by Bai Yu's punch, and they simply ceased to exist. The huge shock wave broke the surrounding tree trunks, and also shook the lower 5 away. Tomioka Giyu was also stunned by Bai Yu's punch. If this punch hit the lower string 5, its body would be directly blasted into a meat paste by the huge energy. The most fundamental reason why Bai Yu activated the demonization to deal with the lower string 5 was to vent his anger on the lower string 5. After all, this guy was very unfriendly to Nezuko just now, so Bai Yu had to return it 100 times or 10 times. Although the lower string 5 was not directly hit by Bai Yu's fist, its internal organs were still shattered by the powerful energy shockwave. The lower string 5, which flew backwards, just wanted to get up, but vomited a lot of blood and shattered internal organs from its mouth. If it were an ordinary person, there would have been no possibility of survival. However, the lower string 5 is not a human, so such an injury will not kill it, but it made it feel extreme pain for the first time. This pain is more intense than being cut into pieces of meat. The lower string 5 tried its best to recover from its injuries, and then stood up with difficulty. As soon as he stood up, Bai Yu had already appeared in front of it, and then he pressed the head of the lower string 5 into the ground. It was a complete crush, and the lower string 5 didn't even have a chance to escape or resist. It can be said that the damage caused by Bai Yu was greater than the recovery ability of the lower string 5. If it can't recover, then it will naturally have to endure the pain caused by the injury. It was also the first time that Tomioka Giyu saw Bai Yu fighting with the demon. He didn't expect Bai Yu's style to be so fierce. This was simply not a fight, but a one-sided abuse. Fortunately, it was a demon who was abused, so Tomioka Giyu's emotions remained calm, without any big fluctuations. After Bai Yu pressed the head of the lower string 5 into the ground, he pulled it out, and finally grabbed its hair, and lifted it up. At this time, the lower string 5 was hit twice by Bai Yu like this, and was directly played by Bai Yu half of his life, and was pinched in Bai Yu's hand with his dying breath. Bai Yu didn't think he was so cruel. After all, the lower moon 5 was a demon, and a direct subordinate of Muzan Kibutsuji, and one of the 12 demon moons. Bai Yu knew that, as long as he gave it some time, this guy would definitely be full of energy again. After making the lower moon 5 look half dead, he threw it heavily to the ground again, and threw it to the ground, and the method was like throwing a fish. the body of the lower moon 5 hit the ground, and it directly cracked the ground. Chapter 245 Happy Fatherhood. This made the lower string 5 temporarily lose its ability to move, and Bai Yu also stopped attacking temporarily, then took out a blood collection tool from his arms, and inserted it into the heart of the lower string 5. After collecting the blood of the lower string 5, Bai Yu said to Tomioka Giyu, "Help me get this thing. It can be regarded as fulfilling your duty as a senior brother." Although Tomioka Giyu didn't understand what Bai Yu was doing, he still caught the blood collection tool thrown by Bai Yu. After collecting the blood, Bai Yu planned to play a little longer and send the lower string 5 on the road. At this time, Bai Yu pulled out his own demon slaying sword and inserted it into the heart of the lower string 5. After the demon slaying sword was stained with the blood of the lower string 5, it immediately stimulated its blood sucking characteristics, so it greedily sucked the blood of the lower string 5. As time went on, the lower string 5 also felt something was wrong, so he struggled violently, but the demon slaying sword had nailed it to the ground. Moreover, when Bai Yu saw that lower moon 5 was struggling, he punched it on the head without hesitation, and this punch made it a lot more obedient. Now lower moon 5 is no longer as high and mighty as before, and a few punches have caused Bai Yu psychological trauma. Now lower moon 5's eyes are full of fear when looking at Bai Yu. "Let me go. Dad. Let me go. Please. Dad." Lower moon 5 seemed to have a mental problem and directly called Bai Yu dad. Bai Yu was stunned. He actually became a father? Question mark? He couldn't help but slapped her twice and then said, "I haven't even touched your mother's butt. How can I have a son like you? Kill me. Don't torture me anymore. You pervert." Lower moon 5 suddenly became furious again and cursed at Bai Yu. As soon as the lower string 5 finished speaking, Bai Yu punched him again and then said lightly, "Be honest. Wait until my sword sucks your blood dry, then you can go on your way." However, how could the lower string 5 be content to wait for death and immediately chose to self-destruct to escape? However, the self-destruction did not cause any harm to Bai Yu, but a large amount of blood splashed from the explosion, sprayed on Bai Yu's face, and the blue robe was also dyed red. In fact, Bai Yu could have avoided it, but Bai Yu did not avoid it because he did not want to give the lower string 5 a chance to escape. Because the powerful impact of the self-destruction hit the lower string 5's head far away, Bai Yu did not give the lower string 5 any chance at all when the lower string 5 chose to self-destruct and directly pressed the lower string 5's head. "You bastard." Seeing that his plan did not succeed, the lower string 5 was immediately angry and cursed. In fact, the reason why Bai Yu made so much trouble, in addition to wanting to vent his anger and teach the lower string 5 a lesson, was to let the demon slayer sword suck some blood. "Since you are so dishonest, I have no choice but to fulfill your wish." Bai Yu's tone became even colder, and then a ball of black air spread along Bai Yu's arm that was holding down the head of the lower moon 5, and finally completely wrapped the head of the lower moon 5 in it. "Demon Devour," Bai Yu said 4 words lightly. Then, the lower moon 5 made an extremely tragic cry, and as the cry completely quieted down, the demon devoured the lower moon 5. Successfully devoured the lower moon 5 of the 12 demon moons, and obtained the demonization skill, Spider Silk Control. Chapter 246 Bai Yu captures Kocho Shinobu alive. Spider Silk Control. Bai Yu muttered about his new skill, and then he imitated Spider-Man in the Marvel movie and tried to make a gesture of spraying spider silk. Swoosh. As a result, spider silk really shot out from Bai Yu's wrist, but the spider silk was not white, but dark purple. Seeing that it really worked, Bai Yu was immediately happy. It seemed that he could debut as Spider-Man now! Exclamation mark. However, Bai Yu still felt that this skill was not particularly strong, and it was more of a control skill. After that, Bai Yu withdrew from the ghost transformation, then pulled the demon slaying sword out of the ground, and finally put it back into the scabbard. The ghost blood on Bai Yu's face had been absorbed by the ghost, and only the ghost blood remained on his clothes. Then, Bai Yu turned and walked towards Tomioka Giyu, and then came to Tomioka Giyu and took the initiative to say to him, "Long time no see. I just didn't expect you to become my senior brother. Long time no see." Tomioka Giyu also replied to Bai Yu very simply. 2 years have passed, and Bai Yu is indeed very different from 2 years ago. Immediately, Bai Yu stretched out his hand to Tomioka Giyu, and then put on a look of asking for something, and said, "Give it to me." Hearing this, Tomioka Giyu looked at the blood collected by Bai Yu in his hand, and then returned the thing to Bai Yu, and then asked, "Are you collecting this blood to drink?" Tomioka Giyu has seen the specialness of Bai Yu, and knows that Bai Yu is a freak who needs to rely on sucking ghost blood to survive. "No, it's for research. I don't drink the blood of these wild ghosts. I drink the blood of Nezuko." Bai Yu answered briefly. "Okay. Let's go and see how your junior brother Tanjiro is doing. You, as a senior brother, don't know how to care about him." Bai Yu immediately took back the topic and reminded Tomioka Giyu. Then, Bai Yu walked towards Tanjiro, and Tomioka Giyu didn't say much and followed him. While Bai Yu was beating the lower string 5, Tanjiro had already taken advantage of this time to crawl to the side of Tanjiro Nezuko and hugged her tightly. At this time, Kocho Shinobu rushed in the direction of Tanjiro and then drew her sword and stabbed Nezuko. Bai Yu and Tomioka Giyu reacted at the same time, dodged in front of Nezuko, and then drew their own Nichiren swords and stabbed Kocho Shinobu's Nichiren sword from bottom to top, changing the direction of Kocho Shinobu's attack and stopping Kocho Shinobu's attack. Bai Yu and Tomioka Giyu attacked at the same time, and Kocho Shinobu couldn't bear the power of Bai Yu and Tomioka Giyu. The whole person could only do a somersault backwards to buffer the huge power of the two people's swords. But when Kocho Shinobu just turned over and was about to land, Bai Yu's left hand reached out to Kocho Shinobu at the same time with extremely fast speed and suddenly grabbed Kocho Shinobu's neck tightly and then pressed her to the ground, and his right hand had already put the Nichiren sword on her neck. Shinobu Kocho was a bit unresponsive. She was actually captured alive by Bai Yu. Giyu Tomioka did not expect Bai Yu to have any follow-up actions. Seeing Bai Yu pinning Shinobu Kocho under him and holding a knife to her neck, Giyu Tomioka simply said to Bai Yu, "She is a companion." Chapter 247 Bai Yu's Strength. Giyu Tomioka's words did not mean for Bai Yu to let go, but just reminded Bai Yu that he and Shinobu Kocho were partners. The expression on Bai Yu's face was very cold, and there was a hint of coldness in his eyes. If Shinobu Kocho was not a human and not a ghost, Bai Yu would have stabbed her with a knife long ago. After all, Nezuko's life is linked to Bai Yu. As long as someone has the intention to kill Nezuko, Bai Yu will naturally not give a good face. Although Giyu Tomioka did not know why Bai Yu cared so much about Nezuko, Giyu Tomioka knew that Nezuko was Bai Yu's Achilles heel. Giyu Tomioka tried to stop her just now because he was afraid that Shinobu Kocho would move Bai Yu's Achilles heel, and then he would get into trouble and be killed by Bai Yu. That's right, Giyu Tomioka was afraid that Bai Yu would get angry and really kill Shinobu Kocho, because Giyu Tomioka knew that Bai Yu had this ability. He had the ability to die, even if he and Shinobu Kocho joined forces. Shinobu Kocho was stunned for a few seconds. Then she smiled at Bai Yu and said, "You are so amazing. You can actually subdue me." Tomioka. Who is this person? He looks so cold like you. Is he your stepson? By the way, why did you stop me from killing the ghost? Then Shinobu Kocho looked at Giyu Tomioka and asked him, "Since you don't know, then I will tell you that you can't touch this girl who turned into a ghost. Otherwise I will kill you." Bai Yu said to Shinobu Kocho very seriously with a fierce look on his face. Shinobu Kocho was also stunned by Bai Yu's extremely domineering words. From childhood to adulthood, no one had ever spoken to Shinobu Kocho in such a decisive and domineering tone. Tanjiro looked at Bai Yu, who was domineering, in order to protect Nezuko, and felt warm in his heart. However, Kocho Shinobu soon adjusted herself and continued to say to Bai Yu with a smile, "Brother, don't you know that demons specialize in eating people? Since you are a member of the Demon Slayer Corps, you should know that our duty in the Demon Slayer Corps is to eradicate demons from this world. Don't talk to me about that. Except for her, you can kill anyone you want." Bai Yu still said coldly to Kocho Shinobu, "Brother, you are such a strange guy. However, you will be hated by others like this. Just like Tomioka." Kocho Shinobu was also a little confused about Bai Yu, but still kept smiling, and said to Bai Yu, "I'm not hated." Tomioka Giyu interrupted at this time to clarify. Shinobu Kocho was also shocked by Giyu Tomioka's words, but he continued, "Also, he is not my stepson, but my junior fellow apprentice. Secondly, that girl is his Achilles heel. I advise you not to think about hitting that girl, otherwise I can't stop him from killing you." "Really? Sorry, you don't know you are hated. I'm sorry for talking too much." Shinobu Kocho replied to Giyu Tomioka a little embarrassedly. Giyu Tomioka was also hit hard when he heard what Shinobu Kocho said later, but Giyu Tomioka did not argue. "That little brother, what's your name? Do you know that if you protect Ghost, it is against the team rules?" Shinobu Kocho continued to deal with Bai Yu. Bai Yu was unmoved, but said very displeasedly, "Don't talk nonsense to me. It's not your turn to point fingers at what I want to protect. If you want to die, just say it. I'll send you on your way now." Chapter 248, Crow's New Order. It was actually very normal for Bai Yu to be like this to Shinobu Kocho. After all, when someone wants to kill you, even if the other person is a very beautiful girl, you will not be polite to her at all. You are really domineering. Shinobu Kocho was quite helpless. She didn't expect Bai Yu to be even harder to talk to than Giyu Tomioka. Just when the situation was at a stalemate, a crow suddenly circled over everyone's heads, and then shouted in a hoarse voice, "Take Bai Yu, Tanjiro, and Nezuko back to the headquarters, no mistakes. Bring them back. Bring them back." Bai Yu, wearing a blue water pattern robe and white hair. Tanjiro, wearing a checkered pattern robe, with a scar on his forehead. The girl Nezuko is a demon, with a bamboo tube gag in her mouth. The crow circled in the middle, repeating this important instruction. After hearing the order from the Kocho, Shinobu couldn't help but stroke Bai Yu's hand, and then said with a smile, "So it's Bai Yu. It seems that I can't die. You have to go back to the headquarters with me." Bai Yu immediately let go of Kocho Shinobu, then stood up and put the demon slaying sword back into the scabbard. Although he didn't know what the demon slayer core was planning, Bai Yu was ready to go to the hangman banquet. After being released by Bai Yu, Kocho Shinobu turned over and stood up, and then patted the dirt on her clothes. Bai Yu no longer paid attention to Kocho Shinobu, but squatted down and used the breath of wood to restore the bodies of Tanjiro and Nezuko at the same time. Bai Yu's two palms were placed on the backs of Tanjiro and Nezuko respectively, and then he continued to input the gentle essence of wood into the two. Tomioka Giyu and Kocho Shinobu were also attracted by Bai Yu's actions, and at the same time, felt the rich vitality emanating from Bai Yu's palms. This unconventional treatment method was also the first time for the two of them. "Tomioka, did your master teach him this trick? Why haven't I seen you use it?" Shinobu Kocho couldn't help but ask Giyu Tomioka. Giyu Tomioka shook his head and said, "This is his own special skill, not learned from my master." Hearing this, Shinobu Kocho also felt that it was right. If Bai Yu learned this trick from the trainer, then she couldn't be unaware of what this method was. "I really like him more and more." Shinobu Kocho couldn't help but sigh. Bai Yu naturally heard the conversation between the two, but Bai Yu didn't pay too much attention to it, but silently used the essence of wood to regulate Tanjiro and Nezuko's body. Because Nezuko is a ghost, her own recovery ability is very strong, and with Bai Yu's treatment, Nezuko soon woke up. Immediately, Bai Yu stopped, then stood up, and picked up the mist spruce wooden box that Tanjiro had thrown aside, and then placed the mist spruce wooden box in front of Nezuko, saying, "Nezuko, go in and have a good rest. Leave the rest to me." Although Bai Yu and Nezuko are not related by blood, Nezuko still has feelings for Bai Yu. Nezuko's feelings for Bai Yu are more like those of a daughter and a father. Nezuko still listened to Bai Yu's words, so she shrank and got into the mist spruce wooden box. After that, Bai Yu closed the wooden box, turned on the ghost transformation, and used the skill, Spider Silk Control, to wrap the wooden box tightly in the spider web. Chapter 249, Freak in the Eyes of Tomioka Giyu. because the lock pin of the mist spruce wooden box had been broken by Nezuko when she was in an emergency. In order to prevent the door of the wooden box from being shaken open, Bai Yu used the new skill he had acquired to seal the mist spruce wooden box. Or did he just shoot a spider web from his hand? Isn't this a skill that only ghosts can use? Kocho Shinobu was also frightened by Bai Yu's revelation. If it weren't for Bai Yu's own human breath, and if Bai Yu was not Tomioka Giyu's junior, Kocho Shinobu would have thought Bai Yu was a ghost disguised as a human and attacked him. Although Tomioka Giyu was quite surprised, he didn't show it. As for Bai Yu, Tomioka Giyu didn't have much contact with him, so he naturally didn't know all the strange abilities of Bai Yu. However, Bai Yu is indeed a freak who can't be viewed with common sense. This is how Bai Yu is in Tomioka Giyu's heart. In addition to the word freak, Tomioka Giyu can't really think of other words to describe Bai Yu. He is very special, so it is very stupid for you to provoke him. Tomioka Giyu said to Kocho Shinobu lightly. Bai Yu carried the mist spruce wooden box on his back, then pulled Tanjiro up and asked, "Tanjiro, can you walk?" Tanjiro immediately tried to walk. Although he could walk, he walked very slowly, and it was extremely difficult. This was when Bai Yu supported Tanjiro. If Bai Yu hadn't supported him, Tanjiro would probably have been able to stand with difficulty. Seeing this, Kocho Shinobu couldn't help but say to Bai Yu, "Since he can't walk, I'll ask someone to carry him back. This will also make him suffer less." Bai Yu naturally had no objection and did not reject Kocho Shinobu's kindness, but the relationship between Bai Yu and Kocho Shinobu was still very stiff. Afterwards, the hidden department's men came over according to the signal flares fired by Kocho Shinobu, and among those masked hidden department people, there were several members who were rescued by Bai Yu during the selection and finally chose to enter the hidden department. After seeing Bai Yu, several people couldn't help but feel a little excited. After all, this was their savior. Without Bai Yu, they would have died in Fujixi Mountain. At the same time, they were also quite satisfied with their current work and treatment, so when they saw Bai Yu again, they took the initiative to greet him. "Senior Bai Yu, you are still alive." I said that Senior Bai Yu was so powerful in Fujixi Mountain, he would definitely not die easily. Yes. After knowing that many team members died in Spider Mountain that day, we are all worried about your safety. What happened to Tanjiro? It's okay. Those hidden team members who knew Bai Yu couldn't help but squeeze in front of Bai Yu and talked excitedly about Bai Yu. Seeing this situation, Kocho Shinobu was also a little surprised. She didn't expect that Bai Yu's reputation was also known in the hidden department! Bai Yu is so famous, why don't I know him? Hearing this, Bai Yu asked the hidden team members in confusion, "Do you know me?" Seeing that Bai Yu did not recognize them, several people took off their masks, then showed their faces to Bai Yu, and said, "It's us. We were the team members who participated in the selection with you in Tenxi Mountain. You saved us at that time." Chapter 250. You won't have this chance. Bai Yu understood what they said. Although the faces of several people were still a little strange to Bai Yu finally understood why they treated him like this. "It's you. Are you adapting to the hidden department?" Bai Yu also began to ask them about their well-being. "Not bad. Compared with the frontline team members, our days are much more comfortable." One of the hidden team members replied. "Senior Bai Yu, Tanjiro seems to be injured. Leave him to us to take care of him." Another hidden team member said again. "Senior Bai Yu, are you injured? Let us check you." Faced with the enthusiasm of these hidden team members, Bai Yu was a little overwhelmed, but still politely refused their examination. Because Bai Yu knew his own physical condition, he did not need them to check. Then, they began to routinely check Tanjiro's injuries. After confirming that Tanjiro's injuries did not threaten his life, they carried Tanjiro on a stretcher. After doing all this, the captain of the small team reported to Shinobu Kocho and Giyu Tomioka and asked about the next action. Shinobu Kocho looked at Giyu Tomioka and said to him, "Tomioka, the final review of Spider Mountain is handed over to you, but don't leave any fish that slip through the net. I will take your junior brother to the foot of the mountain to reunite with the main force." Giyu Tomioka nodded naturally and had no objection to this. Then, Giyu Tomioka left. Shinobu Kocho then looked at Bai Yu and waved to Bai Yu, saying, "Bai Yu, just follow me down the mountain obediently. Don't make it difficult for me. After all, I still like you very much." Shinobu Kocho's voice was neither too loud nor too soft, and everyone present could hear it, and those members of the hidden team who knew Bai Yu couldn't help but talk about it with a smile. Oh my god. Did the insect pillar confess his love to Bai Yu senpai? I wish I could be liked by a pretty girl. Bai Yu senpai is really strong in every aspect. He is simply a perfect example. Hearing the hidden team member who led his team bragging about Bai Yu, the hidden team member who was the team leader couldn't help but come over and ask them in a low voice, "Hey, who is the Bai Yu you are talking about? I have never seen you bragging about the pillars of the Demon Slayer Corps." Bai Yu replied to Shinobu Kocho, "You won't be embarrassed, because before that, you have already died under my sword." Bai Yu's words were telling Shinobu Kocho that, if I didn't want to go back to the Demon Slayer Corps headquarters with you, I would have killed you by now, and would not give you the opportunity to embarrass yourself. Shinobu Kocho was also stunned for a moment, not knowing how to respond to Bai Yu's words. Bai Yu always said that he wanted to kill himself, which made Shinobu Kocho very helpless. As soon as Bai Yu said this, the members of the hidden team were immediately frightened and broke out in cold sweats. Bai Yu actually said that he wanted to kill the insect pillar of the Demon Slayer Corps. This was too crazy. That was the pillar of the Demon Slayer Corps. He was the top combat force of the Demon Slayer Corps. However, from Bai Yu's words, they could also feel that something unpleasant seemed to have happened between Bai Yu and Shinobu Kocho. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.